Oh, come back here.
So this field over here is the place, right?
Malmady. This is the monument right here. Now, the 285th Artillery Observation Battalion is passing through Malmady. And right as they get to the edge of town, Peregrine says there are Germans up there. We've got reports of all kinds of stuff happening. You might not want to take that direct route. And Lieutenant Larry says, no, I'm behind schedule. I'm going to risk it. And he starts driving from Malmady in the direction of Lincolnville. And as he comes to this crossroads, heading down this road here. So this road, you got elements coming through. You have to call them coming around the corner. And they catch these guys. And it's an artillery observation battalion. They've got trucks, soft-skin vehicles. There's absolutely no chance of them doing anything. There's some exchange of gunfire, but they quickly shoot up the trucks, and they're going to take the column. The guy by the name of Bastogne is up front commanding these guys. Piper comes up and says, why'd you blow up all these trucks? We could have used them. We got to get moving. So Piper's going to continue on. Archer's going to take, I've heard 120 or 130 prisoners. So give or take 10. He's going to gather them together and he's going to march them up over here. So what we'll do is I'll let you take some pictures, some more pictures here, and then we'll walk up to the field. The massacre doesn't happen here. But this is where the Germans are coming around the corner when they catch this column.
They caught him here.
Right. And that exchange of fire begins at the right away. Before the prisoner actually taken, Larry is trying to stop his guys from really fighting back because he knows that there's nothing he can do. And says to fight back is only going to provoke him. So they gather all the prisoners up here and they put them in this field extending down in this direction, 8 deep, 130 guys like this. Bastogne takes 2 tanks, and he's going to place one probably about here, and one a little bit further down, and they're going to guard the prisoners. Piper goes on. Bastogne then turns to an SS corporal and says, shoot the prisoner. And he's pointing at one of the men in the front rank. And just to show you that a lot of people participated in the war, the guy that fires the first shot's Romanian, he's not German. But anyway, I'm going to read Larry's passage here, because he survives. And he later testifies at Dachau in the trial. Larry's shot in the calf, then he goes down, and then shooting here and there, a bullet went through the head of the man next to me. I lay tensely still, expecting the end. Could he see me breathing? Could I take a kick in the groin without wincing? He was standing at my head. What was he doing? Time seemed to stand still, and then I heard him reloading his pistol in a deliberate manner, laughing and talking. A few odd steps before the reloading was finished, and he was no longer so close to my head. Then another shot a little farther away, and he passed me up. What had happened was after the first shot, there's a few more machine gun shots, and there are officers in the stack of prisoners saying, stand fast, because some guys are starting to try to run away, and they're trying to keep these guys calm, thinking that it's just some German soldiers getting a little out of control. But after the second round of shots, somebody in the Germans starts saying, kill them all, kill them all, kill them all, and they open up with machine guns on them. And there's going to be about 85 guys. There are going to be 85 guys killed. Not all of that during that first fusillade. The fire goes off. Some guys start to run and they're cut down. Other guys hide under the bodies and they start to, 85 aren't killed right away. The shooting goes on for 15 minutes though. And then after the shooting stops, this unit's going to pass on, and an engineer unit, SS engineer unit's going to come by, and they're going to walk amongst the bodies and they're going to kick guys. Or some of the other things they do is they say, "Hey Joe, they're gone," and the guys will get up and they'll shoot them. Another favorite tactic is you kick them in the groin, and if they wince, you shoot them. But they're going to get 85, 86. I've heard both numbers. So the rest are going to get away. Many of whom are critically wounded, and they're going to spend days wandering in the woods. But some guys are going to get back. After the snow falls, they're buried. And then a lot of the pictures you see of the Malmady massacre, when they came back afterwards and they were digging the bodies out. But Peregrine is in Malmady, which is only 4 kilometers away, and he can hear the gunfire. So he sends 2 men up here to find out what's going on to that unit. He said, "Don't go down that road." They get up here, and they get just about down where the monument is at, and they can see all the GIs in the field, and they're just awestruck. And they go back, and they're so stunned that it's going to take about an hour for Peregrine to get any information out of him about what he's just seen, because they're just in a state of complete shock. Peregrine is going to report that back, and pretty quickly the Allied command is going to make the decision to let the GIs know what's going on. And it might seem a bit cold for me to say this, but in a way this becomes one of Eisenhower's assets, and he knows it. Because if John knows, or George knows, or Paul or Earl know what the Germans are doing, there's no point in surrendering. So what started out as a German attempt to terrify your opponent really backfires on them, and it's going to give these Americans a whole lot of backbone, because there's not much point in throwing up your hands anymore. And John, you said when you heard, what did the guys say when they heard about the prisoners?
They'll keep on going. It got to the point.
This is in Lignaville, which is just down the road from Malmady and Bastogne.
You like that, Peter?
Coming down this road on the 17th are elements of Comp Group Piper. And in the lead tank is the guy by the name of Fisher. And not only is he Piper's adjutant, but they're very, very close personal friends. He's leading a column down here. Hoge has his headquarters in the Hotel du Moulin with his staff, and the men are kind of spread around in the town. They hear the gunfire at the crossroads. One of the officers decided to go up there and see what's going on, as they think this is well in the rear area. Drives up the hill in a Jeep, gets to the curb and gets out, and he can hear noise, and he starts walking, and as he gets going up the hill, all of a sudden he's standing right in front of a Panther tank. So Fisher and his group are going to come down into the town. And 2 of the tanks that they're working on, the turrets work. One of them fires on Fisher's tank and knocks it out. And because his tank had been having engine trouble, his uniform was covered in oil. And he caught on fire.
Fisher did?
Fisher caught on fire. And he said, report right here. My Panther arrived at Lignaville and was knocked out there from behind. There was an ambush. Piper's coming along behind. Piper gave us cover fire when we left our tank, and we were taken under fire by small arms. I was terribly burned. We had spilled oil on our uniforms. Piper rushed to me and gave me first aid. He was so irritated that he put on the bandage backwards. He was also so irritated that he grabs a Panzerfaust, which is a German bazooka, and decides he's going to go settle something, and he walks down the street with the Panzerfaust down towards the hotel to go after one of the tanks, and all I can figure is it was just around the bend there. So he's going to get in the area of the monument, and somebody behind him is going to knock out the tank, and they kind of calm Piper down. The Germans are going to go into the town, and during this whole exchange, General Hoge and the staff in there have left in a great big hurry, and they take off in this direction, leaving their dinner and cigarettes burning in the ashtray and the whole bit. The SS troopers make a big deal about all of this. But not everybody escapes. There's some fighting. John, you need some water?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
I get some. Go with it.
So there's house-to-house fighting in the town because armored elements from 9th Armored are starting to come this way. There are tanks coming up. And there starts to be small arms fire. They capture 8 Americans, and they line up against the barn on the other side, and they shoot them. And that's what the monument is here for. They're then going to push on through the town. There's an exchange in the tank battle. Shots are fired back and forth. But again, because of the momentum and the armament of Concord Piper, they're just going to keep pushing on through. But they just stumble on this. And one of the women that was in the hotel said that Piper, which is kind of contradicts what Fisher says, but Piper was very polite and very proper, and he told her that she should go to the basement until the fighting was over. And she said that he behaved very well, unlike all of his men, who behaved with great ferocity and unkindness to the Belgians. So, this is just one more stop, one more little roadblock. They stumble on and just yet another set of atrocities that they commit as they're going along. So Malmady is probably the largest, but it's not, collectively it's not. So then we'll go on.
So this is General Hoge's headquarters.
Yep. Just to get George to turn around. He's talking.
That is a good shot.
This is in Stavlo. This is the town of Stavlo. This is the Ambleve River down below. The rebuilt bridge right here.
Okay, after Lignaville, Piper's going to pass through Stavelo pretty quickly because he wants to get down to Trapont. And he leaves a small detachment here, and he heads down in that direction to get secure for more river crossings. Now, as he's advancing, we'll go up there and I'll show you where the big fuel depot was that you see in all the movies when they write about it. It was guarded by a bunch of Belgian soldiers, not resistance. And after Lignaville, word came back that Piper's column was coming, so they lit it up, and it's gone. So during that night, the Americans get troops into the town. They get guys from the 30th Infantry Division, some armored troops, into the town behind Piper. So what Piper says is you've got to take the town back. And the infantrymen here are the 30th Division, they're North Carolina Well, they were originally North Carolina, South Carolina Guardsmen. If any of you guys have been with me to the Falaise Gap in Mortain, they're the guys that stopped the only German counteroffensive in Normandy at Mortain. And afterwards, they got the nickname of Roosevelt's SS. So they're here. A few armored elements are here. 4 Panthers are going to come down the road right there where the sign says Rafat. The first one's going to come around the corner, and an anti-tank gun takes the turret right off it. Boom. Oh, excuse me, let me back out of it. Before this attack, another one comes in with 3 Tigers. King Tigers, like you're going to see at La Glaise. They cross the river, and just as they're getting up by where the Abbey is, guys in bazookas get around behind the first Tiger and knock it out. Probably knock the treads off and immobilize it, and the crew try to get away. So that blocks the road. The 2 other Tigers coming behind it then have to go down all these little side streets, which we've all had way too much experience with so far, to try to get into the town square. And they're taken out by bazooka teams, guys coming up behind the tanks, because the Panzer Grenadiers are nowhere to be seen. So they drive these tanks right in the middle of this. So then the 4 Panthers come down here. The first one comes around, turret's knocked out. Second one comes around it and actually gets to the middle of the bridge. Gets to the middle of the bridge, and it gets hit by so much fire that the turret doesn't work and it backs off. Third one comes up and it starts to take heavy fire, and it just starts to back up, and it goes, actually, if you'll part this book here, I can show you a picture of it. It starts to try to back out of the way, and it gets stuck. So then the fourth one just says, well, discretion is the better part of valor, and leaves. So 30th Division is going to be in here now. They're going to launch another attack into the town from this direction now. They're going to try to infiltrate the town. It's going to be lots of house-to-house fighting. This last attack is from 2nd SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment, which isn't part of Piper's group, but it's guys from the Panzer Army that are trying to support Piper, because now Piper's cut off. Because with Americans in the town, Piper's down at Trapont, La Glaise.
How far away is that?
We'll be there in 20 minutes, so 6-7 kilometers.
Right.
So they've got to get the Americans out of here. So they come up, and this unit has bridging equipment. And they actually start to try to swim the river to set up the engineering equipment to start a bridge across the river. But the 30th Division is going to push them back. But there's a lot of back and forth here in the town. And during that, the Germans are going to go on another one of their little killing rampages. And in this town, and in the little villages and houses around it, they're going to count for about 130 more Belgian civilians. But see, now at this point, what is so important is because they don't take Stavelot. As the 4th attack is going back and forth, engineers, they're going to get engineers down here, and they're going to blow this bridge. Which means that even if the Germans take Stavelot, they can't do anything about it, because now you've got some of Piper's men are on this side of the river, and we're going to go up the valley of the Amblève. Piper and the rest of his guys are on the other side, and they can't support one another. So at this point, Piper's command is going to be cut in half, what's left of it, and they're going to be stuck on this road. Also, they're going to start hitting fighter bombers. We're going to go up the valley of the Amblève, and you're going to see it's at the bottom of this really steep hillside. Right. And the whole column is stuck there in the road, and the P-47s are coming, and they're just dropping 500-pounders on the column. So
what's the weather like at that time?
It's not great, but it's clear enough that they can get fighters, P-47s down. Because the fighter bombers, they're used to flying really low, so they can fly under the cloud cover. So they couldn't use strategic bombing. It wouldn't be precise enough, and they don't want to hit Belgian civilians. But you can fly fighter bombers down there.
Well, the British had a fighter plane that
Typhoon.
yeah.
But it's the same thing. They can fly under.
That's right.
So they're dropping 500 pounders, but
I mean, they were low ceiling, low.
right.
Yeah.
And Piper's got anti-aircraft vehicles in his
Oh,
column.
oh, okay.
So I mean, it's not, you just pass quick, drop them and go. So now, since he can't use the bridge at Stavelot, even if he retakes it, he gets up to La Glaise. He's going to keep going to Staumont, and then there's another little bridge just beyond Staumont that we're going to try to get the bus down to before we swing back to La Glaise, and that's where the engineers pop that one final bridge in front of Piper, and without that bridge he knows he can't go anywhere. So he's going to retreat back to La Glaise, circle the wagons there, and he's radioing back to Dietrich saying, I need fuel, I need ammunition, I need support, but because this bridge has been blown, that he can't get any.
Well, if this big bridge is blown, where's the next bridge? How far away is it? Which is
6-7 kilometers up this way. So he's starting to really get boxed in here. And at one point, he asked for permission to withdraw. It goes all the way up to Hitler. Hitler, of course, says no. Dietrich just says, well, we'd love to help you, but you're going to have to fight your way through. And he's, save the tanks. He says, what do you want me to do? Like, fly them over to you, or are you going to fly gasoline into me? I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck here. So he's going to have a little Alamo at La Glaise, which is where we'll finish up. But
how did they find out about the fuel dump? Because when they first started,
they didn't know about it. Because, in fact, that night when they crossed at Leninville and start coming down, there were advanced elements of that column. If they had known about the depot, they probably could have seized it. They didn't even know about it. So that gave the time for some stragglers to come back from that last skirmish to tell the guys at this place, hey, there are a lot of Germans headed this way, and they blow it up. Piper had no idea because he had passed through Stavelot before, and he could have just come over here and grabbed it and gone.
if only he
And
knew,
it was,
right?
it
Oh my
was,
goodness.
it was the big 4-level.
Okay.
It was a bulk fuel depot. It was enormous. It was one of the major Allied depots in the Ardennes.
Now, was there another fuel depot at La Glaise, or is this
This is the main.
the one?
There were smaller ancillary depots for like rear area for division, but this is
The big one.
the big one. So the engineers are, like I said, the engineers are funneling the advance, and they're blowing up the stuff behind them too. So Peregrine is boxing him in as he starts to try to move around, which is why this bridge was so important.
Now, at this point, are the Germans using the Ultra Machine? Their communication like they would have, or are they still doing it with the hand messages? Because, well, they're not. Because one of the reasons that the Allies didn't know about the Battle of the Bulge was because of our alliance on the Ultra Machine.
Right, and because
Germans didn't use the Ultra Machine
Right, they
to broadcast this.
they weren't sure, but they suspected that their codes were being broken.
But at this time, are the Germans now using are they back on using the Ultra Machine?
Yeah,
Or
but
what
they
other
were-
communications are they using?
They're using radio, phone, and runner, because this is the front edge of a moving advance. So it's not ultra level messages very often are higher level
Oh, I see.
things. It's not a captain in a foxhole saying, okay, we've got blah blah blah. That's much smaller scale stuff. So you would have one ultra machine at divisional level. So.
But some reports would be getting back now to the divisional
sure.
level, and so now the Allies now are starting to get.
The Allies know because where we're going to go.
Now our intelligence is
right, and because of what happened at the northern shoulder, they know the northern part of the penetration is safe. Peregrine is boxing in Piper, who's at the very spear point of the farthest advance. So they're starting to contain.
So the penetrator's being outflanked.
Right. And then now we've also got the 82nd that's going to be coming up online. So the situation is stabilizing here, which again, this is happening just after the 101st starts to get into their heaviest action. So you'll start to see the whole momentum of the German offensive shift down to the south. So the Allies are really starting to give it back up here.
The Allies are starting to get
give
it back.
Yeah. They're not taking ground back, but they're stopping the advance.
Right.
When this was over, was Peregrine and his unit awarded decorated
unit. All right, well, Captain Musso, Benito. Now, again, when Piper first gets Stavelot, he leaves that small body there, and he's going to start coming down the road here. He wants to get Trapont because there's a series of bridges in the town. And remember, he's got forces that are separated on both sides of the Amblève right now. Piper's group is going to be, the major group is going to be here. Killing the column down there. What the Americans do is the engineers are spread too thin. So at the end of this bridge here, they're going to put a 57mm gun and basically leave the crew there and say, "It's been nice to know you. See you." And they wait. And as Piper's column comes down, tank gets through this archway here, and the gun goes off, and it blocks the tunnel. So now he's got to go cross country to get around this obstruction and have engineers working on this. They blow other bridges in Trapont, so that body over there is now stuck over on the other side of the river. So what's left of Piper's main column is now going to have to get into Le Glaize, and what they're trying to do is to get through Le Glaize to Stoumont. And he's got reports, he sent a reconnaissance patrol out that there's a little bridge at Chanou. And if he can get that bridge, he thinks it might bear the weight of the tanks, and then that might be a way to link up with the rest of his force. So he's going to shoot off in this direction. But after this is blocked, they'll disable this bridge. So now he can't do anything behind him, so he's trying to get to Chanou. But the guys that knock out the tank here, they get taken out right after that. So they basically sacrificed themselves. And they said when the guys were leaving them, they said, "You're leaving us on a suicide mission."
What is a king tiger weigh?
I don't want to misquote you, but I have a book at home. I'll give my panther weight, and I'll give you a king tiger weight.
Now, how far was this 57 from the tunnel? How far was the gun from the tunnel?
So you're saying that 57 knocked out the tank from there?
So, maybe a couple hundred yards?
Was it a king tiger?
No.
But the table is sort of what?
Bottom right on the outside edge of the tunnel.
So we're going down the highway. I was wrong on where we stopped before. That was Trapont. Now we're heading for Le Glaize. Piper went down this highway in this valley, and fighter planes started dropping 500-pound bombs on his convoy, which was all strung out, and taking out his tanks. So there was a little town called Coo, C-O-O, where there was a bridge, but by the time he got there, that bridge was blown as well. So he had to continue on to Le Glaize, which is down this highway, along the Amblève River. So this is just beyond L'Eglise, and this was the last bridge that we're going to come up to. Not that bridge, that's the railroad trestle bridge. But this was the last bridge that Piper thought he had a chance that might be strong enough to take his tanks. But the American engineers blew it up just before he had a chance to try and go over it. And the little town here is called Chamoux or Chamau. Obviously this is a bridge that replaced the one they blew up. The Amblève River.
Well, and it's funny, I'll get up here. To get the bridge. And just as they get, I don't know exactly, probably about where the bus is, maybe a little bit further down. Elements of Company A of the 291st are on the other side of the bridge, and boom. Well, it's interesting because, you know, they're talking about the race between Peregrine's guys and Piper, and the guys that come here, it's only a small detachment of guys, and the NCO in charge he's literally saying, you know, grab anything that goes boom and throw it in the back of a truck. And they race down here because he didn't initially have, Peregrine didn't have anybody here, but he found out about the bridge. He realizes the Piper's running out of options, and he turns, but there's like running out of units to send out to blow up bridges. So he literally goes to this little handful of guys, and the NCO in charge just says, you run out, and anything that goes boom, you throw in the back of the truck, and they get it wired and ready to go.
Did they blow?
They blew it. So the word gets back to Piper, and that's what Piper was. They said he finally lost his composure, and he was slapping it with the damned engineers, the damned engineers, the damned engineers. So after this now,
The Piper's headquarters are already established over
yeah,
there,
they're up in L'Eglise, and that's where they're outside of L'Eglise.
which we just passed.
So now Piper knows that he can't get himself out. So his decision at first is going to be, I'm going to circle the wagons at L'Eglise and hope the rest of 1st SS Panzer Corps, as part of 6th SS Panzer Army, gets to me. But they don't, because 30th Division is up, 82nd is up, 5th Corps is reestablished, the northern shoulder is solid, and they start pouring fire into L'Eglise. And again, if you go back into the woods, you'll see foxholes, and the ground is all cattywampus. And the soldiers, the SS soldiers in Piper's command called this the cauldron, the Kessel. And if you read a lot about World War II history, whenever things get really, really bad, the Germans tend to call it the Kessel of Stalingrad, the Kessel of motorcycle. So Piper's guys called that the Kessel of L'Eglise, because the Allies just park artillery around here, and then just pummel the living hell out of it. And then eventually Piper's going to say, well, I can't. There's nothing I can do. Nobody's coming to get me. So I'll point it out. And what's going to happen is he's going to abandon what vehicles he has remaining, and he's going to escape on foot by Stomont. And there's a terrific account of he's got to do a river crossing at one point, and literally the SS guys are wading belly deep in the river in December, and they're linking arms just to form a chain so the guys can get across the river, and the guys are getting washed downstream and whatnot. Piper has with him this guy named McCowan, who he got from the hospital as an American prisoner, and he said, if I get my men out of here, then I'll release you. But in case anything happens, you've got to show me how to get through the American lines and to get beyond the Kessel. So that's where that hospital that we just drove by, that's where he came from to hook up with Piper. Well, like I said, we'll drive out and I'll show you
How many men did he actually get out?
800.
800.
5,000.
But McCowan escaped
Right.
when they were retreating.
Right. During the crossing of the river and the night march and all, he just hot-footed. And by that point, the guys that were left were so shot up and so shell-shocked and so cold, they didn't care. And he just made off on his own. So, like I said, why don't we'll go back up to La Glaise. We get to see the King Tiger, and depending on time, I don't know about the museum, but like I said, there'll be a big museum tomorrow. And then one in Clairvaux, and then one in Beaufort. So
We're in La Glaise at the museum here. This is a King Tiger tank, and it is huge. This was one of Piper's tanks that he left here when he retreated. You have to get back to get the whole thing in.
It was down further. They had picked up
It's Bastogne.
mines that they laid the night before. You know, the shell. Or maybe they didn't put the safety back yet, but they're all stacked. I didn't know this, but there was a bunch of mines along the wall also. Look at the switchboard over there. Jesus, when it blew, shaking the ice cream. Believe it or not, I took my helmet off. The lady will have to excuse me. My helmet off and put it down here. As we used to call them, the family jewels. So anyways, there was a hole, we could put a two-family house there. And out of those 13 guys, bush of master. I mean, my buddy Rudy, he was inside. I don't remember the captain's name, but he came out in charge of it. Then he forgot something, and he had to go back in. He went back in. Big way. His flesh was left. There was nothing left, really. And I got a picture at home. There was really nothing left to it. There was 13 guys that were gone just like that. And that's because we still don't know whether artillery, or whether it was safety concerns not put on. And plus they got them all stacked. And pressure. I know it's for tanks, but one's on the bottom, and you got the bottom going down. They picked them up and they were going on the road and stuff like that. We lay them out at night. Lay it off down the road. That's the kind of stuff. I've never taken any mileage. Skin is all out. Actually, it's partly down.
we'll go down there. One of the things to take a look at that monument, though, is you'll notice that it's January 5th. Bastogne was relieved on December 26th. So there was still an awful lot of action going on here well after the relief. And what we'll see, particularly tomorrow during the counteroffensive phase, the 101st is going to lose more men during the counteroffensive than they are during the siege of Bastogne. Okay, and just to orientate you, and we'll get back into the town and do some more of that, but headquarters is over here. The barracks where we're going to go next are over here. This was a storage area, communications area, like John said. 501st headquarters are in here. So when the 501st first comes up on that first night, they're going to go out that road by Mardas and out to where they're going to meet the Germans, and we'll go out there. The square is back down behind us in that direction. But what's going to happen is as these guys come up online, the 501st is going to come up first and hit hit the Germans and stop and form a line. Then the 506 comes up, and slowly they build a perimeter around the city, and the glider guys are going to be the last ones in, and they're going to be the western part of the perimeter. So it's going to be 16 miles around. When we're at the barracks too, I'll also show you where the Pathfinder teams came down to set up the Eureka beacon to bring in the supplies. And it was interesting because John was telling me that most of the guys didn't know how the supplies arrived all of a sudden. But John's taking pictures of supply aircraft coming over Bastogne, just as that other famous picture of Jack Agnew and the Pathfinders, as Jack is getting the Eureka beacon working. So those two pictures were taken at about the same time. But again, this is the center of the town. A lot of the guys, like the guys we'll talk with tomorrow, they're not coming back here. They're out on the line. But John is running back and forth because every time the phone lines are cut, he's the guy that's sent out to prepare the communication. So without John, headquarters staff can't do anything to communicate with the people out on the line. But right here and off in this direction is where they're going to make first contact. Okay, so take some pictures of the monument. Maybe John can walk us down to where the explosion was, and then we'll go to the cave, and then we'll go out into the field.
Hop into this is where we call them bed check Charlie. Along comes the bomb and he's dropping bombs. And I said, we all, four of us said, this is with me, with Thompson, Furtick. I can't think about him. Thompson and Furtick. Well, you know about the damn thing goes. Three of us said, "Go get the hell out of here and going down." Furtick said, "They're not going to get me the hell out of this bit." We're halfway down, another bomb came real close. He passed us, going down. And we said, the big hero. We never let him live it down. Oh, he's going to get me out of here. Man, that was a close one. And we're halfway down. And he barrel-assed by us like we were standing still.
Is this the building where the one of those 500-pounders didn't explode?
Didn't explode.
Yeah.
I don't know if I get down there now, but I've been down there. The day that Andre brought me here, quite a few years ago, the Monsignor at the time was a young priest here. So I saw stuff that I never thought I'd never seen. I actually got down in the boiler room, where the boiler there now, and he pointed out where the bomb, the guy was sitting there, the bomb, and it didn't explode. So, naturally they kept on going. I'll tell you, when I went back, he gives me some field wire. I said, this is stuff we use. The field wire, I made a salt wire, we used to use it inside, so we used it for lights, communication. And he said to me, best wire. What he was still using it. Outside his door, he had a red light and a green light. And inside on his door, a red light and a green light. Scrooge would knock on the door. He didn't want him in because of the red light. He gave me some of that wire, and he said, this is about 45 years later, and he said, it's still great. A lot of stuff like that has been picked up, and it's funny. I always said, we're sitting here, Andre and I, and my son, and he says, how much like I have a beer? I'm coming to beer, we were sitting there. He didn't drink it. Maybe because he didn't want to that he was drinking beer also, but that was okay. But no, he was a young priest.
Okay, we're going to be able to get into the seminary after we finish here.
This is in Bastogne, the barracks, walking towards McAuliffe's headquarters. It's now Belgian Army base.
Standing over there waiting.
I remember, but I was waiting for somebody to bring us down. Get down there. Look, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's too moist inside, they have to take out all the material after each visit, yeah? And when you called me yesterday, it was too short to put the material inside. But the non-commissioned officer, Mr. Eric Lemoine, is able to show you some pictures on his cell phone. But I'm sorry, the cellar is empty. You can only see the place. And that was not the entrance of General McAuliffe, that was the other side of the building, okay? And there is also a new project, and the member of the Belgian government, Mr. Flauw, gives the principle to keep this building intact and to make it possible to visit the McAuliffe cellar each day or perhaps a weekend for the problem. And that was a very hard job to tell to Flauw how this place is important for Bastogne and for Bastogne. So Mr. Lemoine asked if it's possible that first the veterans with some other will join the cellar. Okay? Thank you.
The materials we're talking about that you're not going to see are from like 5 and dime minutes in there.
Yeah, I know.
And sort of
Perhaps you can take a picture.
This was not the main entrance that McAuliffe used to his office. It was on the other side of the building. And they don't have the desks and things set up because it was too short notice.
this is it.
So when we have time,
Yes, sir.
we can show this presentation of the same.
Jean Rowe. Jean Rowe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is a Christmas dinner of General McAuliffe. It was here up there.
Up there.
Yes.
Nice. What did they have? Turkey? What did they eat?
Ouais. Je comprends pas. I don't understand all.
This letter? Yes, this is from General McAuliffe.
Take it on the spot.
Translated in English. Without you and your bodies, today my name will surely not be Robert, but perhaps Carl or Max or I don't know what, staying on the Adolf Square in Berlin, selling I don't know what a German bullshit. But that's the reality. I often say that in my language, I'm native from Wales, where your comrade stays till 2018 until you leave it before you arrive from France. So, thank you very much for all you have done for our people. So, stay up to you. And that for you and for me. And we did it in those nothing that we will never forget. And please, when you go back to the States, give that message to the younger generation. Okay? I have only one small thing to go to tell to you. 2 years ago, I left a veteran. That's not a battle without that. He was only a veteran. And at most at the beginning of the Arab Spring, of the Arab War, you know that 131st Brigade is called Bastogne today, and that brigade was the first in action in Iraq. And one of the veterans, they were 3 guys, tough guys, retired. He was looking deep in my eyes and asked me, is that reality that we Americans are not welcome here in Europe? And that was close to the Biden town, the Buffalo town. I was so afraid I take the electrical line and I say to him, sir, that's only political bullshit. But if a person asks you something like that, I was afraid. And today, nobody speaks about it. But that was a bad experience for me. I was really welcome here. And we have a lot of thank you very much to you. Okay? If you have somebody in the States who is not able to come to Europe, I will give my coordinates to Chris with my email address. You send me a small email with postal address and I send it by post to you. You can join me when you want. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Everybody, what we're going to do now is, again, I'm going to walk back to the seminary. They're going to let us in there so John can show us where the switchboard and whatnot was set up. So if you don't mind a little bit of a walk, we'll walk back if you want. The bus is here, and we're going to meet down there. But I encourage you to join us.